There's one question that every single human has probably asked themselves at some point. What happens when we die? For literally thousands of years, we've had philosophy, we've had faith to give us answers. But what if science could actually give us a peek behind the curtain, a look at what's really going on in those final moments of consciousness? Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, this isn't just a philosophical debate anymore. Right now, in labs and hospitals all over the world, scientists are actually capturing data from the very edge of life itself. They're trying to map the brain's final frontier. And we're going to take a look at what they're starting to find.
See, for the longest time, all we had were these incredible and, let's be honest, sometimes hard-to-believe stories from people who were revived from clinical death. Near-death experiences. But now, we can actually measure what's happening inside the brain when these things are happening. The game has totally changed.
So first things first, let's just talk about what people are actually reporting. Because the truly wild part is just how similar these stories are. We're talking across cultures, across different beliefs, even across centuries. There's a pattern here.
So what is that pattern? Well, it is shockingly consistent. People talk about floating out of their own bodies, literally looking down on the doctors working on them. They describe being pulled through a dark tunnel towards this brilliant, warm light. So many of them have a life review, where their entire life flashes before their eyes. And they often say they meet relatives who've already passed away. The key here is that it's not some random hallucination. It's a structured, almost narrative journey.
And this, right here, this gets to the emotional heart of it all. For most people, it isn't scary. In fact, they describe it as the most profound sense of peace and unconditional love they have ever felt. And that feeling is a huge part of why the experience changes them so deeply.
Okay, so that's the subjective side of things. That's the story. But what about the hard science? What is actually, physically happening inside our brains that could create such a vivid and consistent experience? Let's look at the data.
Now this is a really critical piece of the puzzle. Researchers found that even after your heart stops beating, the cerebral cortex, that's the part of your brain doing all the thinking and perceiving, it doesn't just instantly shut off. It can stay active for up to 20 seconds. Now, 20 seconds might not sound like a lot, but in brain time, that's an eternity. It's more than enough time for an incredibly complex experience to play out.
But here's the real bombshell. In this groundbreaking study out of the University of Michigan, they recorded a massive, organized surge of high-frequency brainwaves, gamma waves, right at the moment of death. We're talking about a brain that's supposed to be shutting down, going dark, but instead it just lights up like a Christmas tree with this coherent, structured activity. It's incredible.
So what even are gamma waves? Well, you can think of them as the signature of a highly conscious, highly engaged brain. They pop up when we're recalling memories, processing complex information, basically when we're in a heightened state of awareness. So to see them spike when the brain is dying is, well, it's the exact opposite of what you'd expect. It suggests the brain can generate this incredibly lucid internal experience at the very end.
And this is the million-dollar question for neuroscientists, right? If the brain is being starved of oxygen and blood, why in the world would it produce this final, brilliant flash of activity that looks more like a brain that is hyper-aware, not one that's failing?
One of the leading theories goes something like this. As oxygen levels just plummet, the brain's natural braking systems, the chemical inhibitors that normally keep everything running in an orderly way, they just start to fail. And suddenly all the brakes are off. This could unleash this incredible cascade of electrical activity, kind of like a neural firestorm that creates that final, incredibly vivid internal reality. Which, of course, brings us right to the heart of the whole debate. We've got these two really powerful sets of evidence. The deeply personal, consistent stories from people, and these surprising signatures from inside the brain. Are they just two different ways of describing the same exact thing?
So let's just lay it out. On one side, you have these accounts where people report details they absolutely could not have known. I'm talking about documented cases of patients accurately describing, say, a specific medical tool left on a high shelf, or even the unique pattern on a doctor's shoelaces, things they couldn't possibly have seen from their gurney. But then on the other side, scientists argue that this huge gamma wave surge, you mix that with the effects of oxygen deprivation, and that could explain everything. The tunnel, the light, the feeling of euphoria. So here's the bottom line. No one, not even the most skeptical scientist, is denying the reality of the experience itself. To the person having it, it feels more real than everyday life. So the real question isn't if it happens, we know it does. The question is, what is it? Is it a biological shutdown process, or is it something more? But no matter what's causing it, there's one thing that is completely undisputed: the profound, permanent change these experiences have on the people who go through them. And this is where the story gets even more fascinating.
I mean, look at this. Across the board, people who have a near-death experience report a huge reduction, sometimes a total elimination of their fear of dying. They become more altruistic, they care way less about money and possessions, and they often find this powerful new purpose for their life. They are fundamentally changed people.
And maybe that's the most important takeaway here, you know? Whether that light at the end of the tunnel is a doorway to another place or just a beautiful fireworks display inside a dying brain, its power to reshape a person's life for the better is undeniable. The meaning they find in it is absolutely real.
And that leaves us right here with the ultimate question. Science has shown us what the brain is doing. It's producing this incredibly complex, vivid, organized state of consciousness at the very end, but it still can't tell us why. So is the brain just creating one last beautiful story for us? Or is it, just for a moment, finally able to perceive a reality that was there all along? We just don't have the answer.